Hello again, everybody. Bruce with Diamond Gems 45. Welcome back to the channel. It's been a minute or two. I haven't put out a video since my 2026 national wrap-up video back in early August. So it's been a little bit more than 2 weeks since I've been on these here airwaves on this here internet thing. And thank you for coming in on this. I know you're spending time with your family on this joyous occasion, it being the 75th anniversary of Eddie Gaedel Day in St. Louis, who had a one-plate appearance career with the St. Louis Browns back on August 19th, 1951. A little background about the Browns. They were the American League team in St. Louis from 1902 to 1953. At one point, St. Louis was the fourth largest city in the United States. The first Olympics held in North America were in St. Louis. And those Olympics were the first to have the gold, silver, and bronze medals type of scoring to take place. The Olympics took from like early July to the middle of November, and there was swimming there, and I've never been able to narrow it down. I've heard from some sources that the swimming took place in the Mississippi River, and I heard some sources, well, they just dug and built a pond for the swimming races. So one of those two, not conducive to fast times, neither way. Anyway, let's get back to baseball and Eddie Gaedel. Today, August 19th, 1951, Eddie Gaedel had his famous plate appearance with the St. Louis Browns, Game 2 of a doubleheader against the Detroit Tigers. Bob Kane was the pitcher for the Tigers. Bob Swift was the catcher for the Tigers. The ironic thing about those two being the battery mates, Bob Swift, the catcher, started his major league career with the St. Louis Browns. Bob Kane, the pitcher, ended his major league career with the St. Louis Browns, and I believe Bob Kane has a card in the iconic 1953 Bowman color set. I'm not exactly sure, but I think he does. Anyway, the home plate umpire that day was Ed Hurley, who is featured in the 1955 Bowman television set. And there's the back if you're into such things. This is the back. Ed kind of looks still traumatized from his day with Eddie Gaedel back in 1951. Anyway, Eddie came to the plate with the contract he had with the Browns in his back pocket. The Browns manager had a copy of the contract and a copy of the current roster. So if anybody asks, they could see Eddie's contract. They could see that Eddie has a spot on the roster. So Eddie took 4 high pitches and got a base on balls and headed down to first base. But by the way, those 4 pitches, 2 from Bob Kane were on the level. He's trying to get this guy out, and they were 2 high called balls. And then he just, kind of just lobbed the other 2 in there, and Eddie headed down to first. Eddie was then taken out of the game, and Jim Delsing, one of the St. Louis Browns, I believe he was an outfielder, came in and pitched in for him. That was always my contention. Just leave him in there just in case he has to run the bases. That would have been spectacle in itself. Remember, Eddie was only 3'7". So anyway, they took him out for a pinch runner, and that was that. Eddie's career as a baseball player was over. From then on, the commissioner had to approve all call-ups or whatever into Major League Baseball, and that was that. Eddie, rumored to be one of the Munchkins in the Wizard of Oz, but he was not. I looked that up. He was not. He was in an entertainment union or guild, but not the Screen Actors Guild. So he would not have been in The Wizard of Oz. He had done other promotional work for Mr. Veck before this and after that. And Eddie died at an early age. Eddie had what was called beer muscles. He would drink a little bit and get into arguments at 3'7" and have a tough time. And anyway, Eddie's cause of death was he was beaten to death by the wrong people at the wrong time. And sad to say that only one person connected with baseball came to Eddie's funeral, and that was Bob Kane, the guy that pitched to him and walked him on 4 straight pitches. And anyway, Ed Hurley, that was not his momentous occasion as an umpire in the major leagues. Ed came back and had been an American League umpire since 1947-ish. Anyway, he stayed in the umpiring business long enough to be the home plate umpire in the first World Series game. There were only 3 played there, I believe, in 1959 at the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum in the White Sox and Dodgers World Series from 1959. So anyway, there you have it about the Eddie Gaedel Day and some of the players that were wrapped up into that. And like I said earlier, the Browns were terrible. They got into one World Series, the 1944 World Series, that was St. Louis versus St. Louis, with St. Louis coming out on top. They hit 1 home run in that World Series, the only World Series they ever got into. And so in the entirety of the history of the St. Louis Browns, they only hit 1 postseason home run. Remember, Mickey Mantle has 18 World Series homers. The Browns, as a franchise, have 1 World Series homer, and that's it. Anyway, nice St. Louis Browns story that just sums up their futility to a T. Longtime broadcaster in St. Louis that I listened to a lot in the 70s and 80s was a fellow by the name of Ron Jacober. Ron, I believe, is still with us. He's about 88, 89, 90 years old by now. But from what I've heard, he's still with us. And he would always tell the story of Sportsman's Park. And out by the scoreboard, there were 2 sets of standings that they kept, kind of like the Cubs do with the pennants out in the outfield near the scoreboard. The Browns used these rebar hooks and big metal signs with the names of the teams on them, so you could see them all over the ballpark. And then when the standings changed, they would take them off the hooks and rearrange them in order of the standings. So the Browns were playing a doubleheader, and the Browns win game 1 of this doubleheader. So somebody in the Browns front office, in between games, figured out that by percentage points, and that's what Major League Baseball uses to all disputes, percentage points to decide who's in first in the standings, in other words. By percentage points, the Browns went into 7th place with that victory. So they sent a fellow out there to take the signs and change them, move the 7th place team down, move the Browns up to 7th, then put the 7th place team in 8th. Problem is, the Browns were in last place for so long, those metal plates had rusted down onto the scoreboard and it couldn't be moved. They needed a couple other guys and some crowbars and some muscle, by the way, to get that sign off and to move it into 7th and put the 7th place team down in the 8th. And of course, with all that falderall, the Browns lose game 2 of the doubleheader. The team that was in 8th place won their game that day, so the Browns go back into 8th place, and the other team was moved up into 7th. So that pretty much sums it up. The majority of the baseball expansion and the movement of teams were normally east to west, and they kept the nickname. The Browns moved west to east and dropped the nickname. So that just about covers it right there. That sums up the futility of the St. Louis Browns. So anyway, I hope you like this. I hope you enjoyed this little story that I told about the St. Louis Browns and Old Sportsman's Park. Anyway, please click like and subscribe. I've gained 5 whole subscribers since the National, and they mean the world to me, folks. Every like, every comment, every subscription I do, they mean the world to me, folks. And hope they do. Hope the videos I make do you some good and you have a lot of fun watching them, as I have fun bringing them to you. Anyway, that's all my time this time. Till next time, so long for just a while.